Hello guys, today I wanted to talk about a topic that I believe has shaped who I am today. Honestly, I feel like trauma and trauma healing is something that is not talked about often. I just want to jump directly into the topic. It's not an easy topic to talk about, of course. I had a traumatic experience during my childhood that has shaped, I believe, who I am today as an adult. And I know that there are a lot of people out there that have been through trauma and they don't even sometimes realize how it may shape them. They have certain triggers or coping mechanisms around their trauma that is reflecting on their present self today. They just think that they have to live with it, and they don't. Working on your healing can definitely change your lives. That's why I want to address this topic on my channel today. I believe trauma as a word is often misunderstood. Not every stressful situation is a trauma, but every traumatic situation is stressful. In a way, we can say that trauma is not what happened to us, but how our nervous system reacted to this trauma as a result. Actually, the word trauma means wound. Of course, you can still continue to function with this wound in your body because it's an invisible wound and nobody really notices it, sometimes not even you, but that does not mean that this wound should be ignored. And a lot of the traumatic experiences happen in childhood. So trauma doesn't always have to be abuse or addiction. It can also appear when your simple needs as a child are not met. When those needs are not met, we just simply adapt. What happens is when we feel like love is conditional, we adapt. If we don't have a safe place where we can express our emotions, we adapt. If we have to be quiet or easy in order to survive the environment, we adapt. In a way, your personality is now based on your survival. And what happens is you start to believe that you will never be loved for who you truly are. You adapt this new personality that has to constantly perform to be loved, and that becomes your new normal. So let me quickly talk about my healing process. And again, healing is not linear. So healing can be different for everyone. This is just my personal story of how I started my healing process and the stages that I went through. So my healing process started once I got away from this toxic environment that I was in. And honestly, it happened all very quickly. As soon as I left this toxic environment and I knew that I wasn't really going back to this toxic environment, everything fell on my shoulders. I was left with memories of things that I went through, and I was really unable to cope with it. I remember very clearly one day going on this mental walk, just to feel a little bit better. That walk, I feel really resurfaced everything that I went through. And I remember coming back home and seeing this jar of peanut butter on the table, and I just took it and ate the whole jar. I felt like I ate my emotions while eating that jar of peanut butter. I will never forget that day. I started to eat all kinds of things in an uncontrollable way, and it's called actually binge eating. What it did for me was that I was eating this thing it was either a granola or peanut butter for me. While eating that thing, I was just not really thinking about this trauma. It was the only moment when I was able to control my brain to focus on the food. Eating it in such a nervous, anxious way, I cannot really describe the feeling. It just wasn't a healthy feeling, and as a result, of course, I gained in 1 month 8 kilos, which is insane. Also, I was extremely mad at myself for not being able to control myself. I was you've been through so much and you were able to stand strong, and now you're out of the situation, and now you're suddenly not being able to be strong, and you're just eating uncontrollably. So I was harsh on myself as well during all of the things that I was going through. I felt very lonely, because I felt like nobody would ever understand what I went through. So stage 2 for me was awareness that I had around my trauma. So in a way, awareness is just accepting that this is not normal and this is not what everybody experiences. I was normalizing it in order to survive, but now I didn't have to normalize it anymore. Seeing that and feeling that was hard because I felt really sad for myself. I pitied the younger version of myself. And I feel this awareness period followed itself by the grieving period, grieving the childhood that I could have had and never did, and grieving people that I wanted to have, like that could support me in a healthy way, and never did. So I was like, in a way, attending the funerals, early funerals of people that never truly showed up for me, because I was putting the boundaries and I was going no contact. It took a lot from me personally, like to be able to set those boundaries and let them know in a way that this was no longer okay. And a lot of the times, like these people reacted like, why now suddenly and not then? Because as a kid, you have no awareness. You have no awareness that the thing that you went through is not normal. Like you always try to normalize the situation. Let's say that your dad was mistreating you and then you were like, yeah, let me just adapt to the situation. Let me make myself in the ways that my dad would maybe approve me or love me more. When that doesn't really work or happen, you're like, okay, there is nothing wrong with my parent. There's something wrong with me. You always blame yourself because that's how your brain is wired as a child. This stage of grief is definitely really uncomfortable, I must say. It takes lots of effort because people will deny your emotions, invalidate your feelings, and that's what they had done before. But now you're at a stage where you're like, this was not normal. This is not normal. You kind of have to fight for yourself, and it is hard. It is hard, but it's definitely worth it because it's the biggest step in order to heal. Next stage for me was knowing who I am. Since it was never given to me like an opportunity to really discover who I was starting life in my 20s as like not knowing who I was. What do I like? Like, what am I good at? Because all of the things that I was good at were told that is not good enough, or it's not really something that should be celebrated, or it's not really a talent. So I'm like at this stage where I'm trying to discover who I am and what I like, which is also a little bit difficult, I must say, because like you're having this FOMO because you were never given that opportunity to discover yourself at the early stages when everybody else did. So now you're like in your 20s or maybe 30s, 40s, trying to discover who you are. What's your purpose in life? A person who never truly connected with her authentic self can never really like have a purpose because you don't know who you are. And when you don't know who you are, you cannot really find your purpose. So it was like a discovery phase for me. Every time I discovered what I actually liked, it was healing me in a different way. I'm glad that I did go through all of that process because I never wanted to give up on myself. And the last stage was like integration back into society, let's say, like integration with the new version of yourself, or actually your authentic self that you discovered and you chose with your own decision making. And now you're out there in the world as a new person. This doesn't happen with time. Time does not heal anything unless you are willing to work on yourself. Honestly, I don't identify myself as a survivor or a victim because I know that I am much more than that, and so are you. This healing process might be a lifelong journey, and that's okay. You already watching this video is a sign that you actually want to do something, want to change, want to heal. Like I said, this was my process. Your process might look completely different, and that's okay. The most important thing is that you don't give up on yourself. I didn't share my story in detail because healing isn't about details. It's about understanding yourself with compassion instead of judgment. Yes, it's true that trauma can shape us, but it doesn't have to be end of our story. Healing is possible, and I saw it for myself, so I hope that this video helped you. I'll see you on the next one.